Hi everyone, it's Rabbi Dr. Jack Cohen with the Dating Shalom Bias series. I hope everyone is doing well. Before I start tonight's presentation, I'd like to just remind everyone out there to please go on Partners in Shidduchim and put your dating resume up. If you need any help with that, I could certainly help you write one. It's not hard at all. It's important to get your resume up there, or the resume of a friend or a family member, because it's a great platform that people look at throughout the world. Many shatchanim go on there. I go on there extensively to help people get married and choose potential matches for them. So again, please go to Partners in Shidduchim, I urge you, and get your resume up there, or write up the resume of a friend or a family member. They'll surely appreciate it. And lastly, if anyone needs any help from me anywhere in the world in terms of shidduchim, or you'd like advice or counsel in any way, or help in getting trained in dating coaching and dating mentoring, or like to get matched up with someone, or you need help in terms of communication or shalom bias issues, feel free to reach out to me from anywhere in the world. Call me at 305-206-1916 or email me at drjackcohen18@gmail.com, drjackcohen18@gmail.com, or WhatsApp me or text me. I'd be delighted to help you. But tonight we're going to focus on an interesting concept, a concept that I'm a very big believer in. That is, in Hebrew we call it makom rishon, first place. You have to make your dating partner feel like they're first place. We're going to examine it from an interesting perspective. We're going to look at the first commandment of the Aseret Divrot, or the Aseret Divrot, the 10 Commandments, and we're going to see what's the connection, what can we learn from there that would be great tools for life in terms of dating and even while we're married. And we know that the first mitzvah is Anuchi Hashem Elokecha asher hositecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am Hashem your God who took you out of Mitzrayim. The first commandment, I am Hashem your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt from the house of slavery. Wow, that's an incredible introduction, isn't it? It's not some silly pick-up line, just straightforward personal information. The tachlis, or the end goal, as we say. We hear the confidence in this introduction and we think, wow, Hashem, this God, He's one amazing God. Now, a rabbi writes a very interesting story about himself. He says at yeshiva, there were approximately 50 young men when I was in yeshiva, and he was about 16 years old. We were far away from our families. We soon bonded and made friends. My closest friend of all was a boy named David. On his 15th birthday, we gave him a little party. We went out around the room and we each toasted him. After 70 odd toasts, he became very drunk. Then we took him back to his room and tried to put him to bed. In the midst of the process, he suddenly became incredibly lucid. He got out of bed, placed his hands on both my shoulders, and he said, "My dear friend, Stanley, I have something of the greatest importance to tell you." He spoke with the authority of a prophet. "You are the Messiah, Stanley. I've been sent as a messenger of God down to this earth to reveal to you that you are the chosen, long-promised Redeemer of Israel. I've waited 15 years to reveal this to you, because the time was not yet ripe. Now the age of redemption has come." We all laughed out loud and told him, "You're crazy, you're just drunk." Then we took off his shoes and tried to stick him back in bed. But he resisted all our efforts. Light shone from his face. "I'm telling you." And here he started to cry, "You, Stanley, are the Messiah, and your task is to redeem the Jewish people and remove all evil from the earth. Like trying, it's you. So you can't shirk your responsibility. God has authorized me to provide a sign. What I'm saying is true." And with that, he began to string together complex mystical names of God from the Hebrew alphabet. None of us were laughing anymore. The other boys were transcribing his words letter for letter. It was a pristine moment. It all made sense. He had revealed the holy new name for God according to the ancient Kabbalistic formula. Having accomplished this mission, David's soul was called on high, at least for the night, and he promptly fell asleep. The other boys looked at me with awe. I was the most special boy on the planet. I was the one born to bring deliverance to all the inhabitants of the earth. Everything my mother had always been telling me was true. My heart swelled to the size of a watermelon, and I couldn't fit through the door. The Messiah, me, right on. I swore the other boys to secrecy. They were frightened and quietly withdrew. I paced the floor, wondering how to handle things. First, I would probably have to retreat to some cave and fast for 40 days and 40 nights, just like Moses did. No doubt, Elijah the prophet, would soon appear to me and provide me with further instruction. With this in mind, I stayed up the whole night preparing a plan for what would have been achieved for the perfection of the earth. I made a list. As far as I can remember, it went something like this. Number 1, end all conflict in the world and usher in a period of world peace. Number 2, rid the earth of disease. Number 3, resurrect the dead. Number 4, eradicate country music from the earth's airwaves. He wasn't into country music. Boy, was I going to be busy. I decided that the first thing that I would do in the morning was to call the president at the time and tell him I was the Messiah, but make sure he would keep it a secret. Better to have him as an ally. I was a bit worried about all the innocent lives I might have to destroy in Las Vegas. By the morning, David had sobered up and remembered nothing of the night before. The other boys rechecked the supposed new mystical name of God that he had revealed in the night and discovered the letters actually came out something like meaningless jargon. All awe and reverence for me instantly vanished. I was the laughingstock of the school. My messianic mission was over, having lasted a measly 8 hours. What's the point of this story? You know what the point is? The point of this story is I stayed up all night at the age of 15 and I was prepared to take upon myself an immense amount of work and global responsibility just because someone made me feel special. That's the lesson of this story, ladies and gentlemen. That in order to be an effective dater, you've got to learn how to make the other person you're dating feel special. It's something we all need. It's something we all search for. The greatest human need is to feel unique, distinguished, and special. But the secret of life is that you can never feel special on your own. It takes a stranger with free choice to choose us in order to feel special. You just can't accomplish it by yourself. We want someone who confirms our sense of uniqueness. This desire to be accorded that first place feeling, to be treated as number one, at least by one other human being, is one of the deepest human desires in every one of us. So strong is it that when we find someone who makes us feel this way, we're prepared to give up everything else. But if we have someone in our life that makes us feel like we're number one, we'll give it all away for that. The first commandment is the only one that commands nothing, but there is an important message hidden here. By simply declaring his identity, I am the Lord your God, God is teaching us that primacy is the first rule of a great relationship. He does not have to embellish this with any specific commands or devotion or worship. Once primacy is given, love and respect follow naturally. It was through acknowledging God's essential primacy in their lives that the Jews at Sinai began to build ties in their relationship with God, ties that bind us to this day. Make me first place. And that's what we want to do in our lives with our dating relationships. Make our partners first place. So that's where you start. Make the person you are dating know that you think there's no one else like them. Give your date precedence over everything. Make them feel that they are more important than everything else, and you're going to be super successful in dating and marriage. Coming even 5 minutes late to a date is basically a statement that something else is more important than them. Don't do it. Here's a case, a story. A dating coach writes, one morning in synagogue, I met with Max, a highly successful banker. He looked unhappy and confided that he had been arguing with his fiancée. I've been coming home late from work a lot recently and have canceled several of our late dinner dates. I've tried to explain to her that with the economic problems in Asia, I have to stay at work while trading is still opening in Tokyo. But it's not the end of the trading day in Asia. I said, why are you here? Why are you not at the office? Well, I have to make time for God, he replied, looking puzzled. I said to him, the dating coach says, your fiancée will soon be your wife. And that relationship is no less important than religion. In the 10 Commandments, God places our obligation to our fellow man alongside our obligations to him. There are 5 obligations to God and there are 5 obligations to man. And they're all equatable. You should make your meetings with her as high as a priority as praying in synagogue. I've noticed that women especially hate the feeling that their dates compartmentalize their dating. I'll see when I have time, they say, but work comes first. Remember, boys and girls, your date could become the most important person in your life. It's just plain silly to make them unhappy when they have so great a capacity to make you happy. Why would you do it? It's self-destructive. Give yourself to your date. Notice that the first commandment states, I am the Lord your God, rather than simply, I am God. Here the Almighty demonstrates He's close to us, His connection with us. He's not too far above us to say that He's ours. He belongs to us. It is the generosity and intimacy of this statement that persuades us to give Him primacy in our lives. A woman may think that her date is handsome, kind-hearted, a good earner, but this will not distinguish him in her mind. Indeed, she will know that there are certainly better looking, kinder, and higher earning guys out there, but only her man is hers. It is this basic fact that makes him the most important thing in her life. She feels that he's exclusively hers. Nothing you can buy will impress her more than the gift of yourself. This is the giving that engenders true commitment. Spending time together, You and your date are important to each other because of the simple fact that you have decided to spend time together. Let's face it, singles have it good. Here you are, totally free, living in your own apartment with a decent, well-paid job. You come and go when you want. You socialize with whom you want. You see whatever you want to see. You frequent the restaurants that best cater to your personal tastes. You visit the friends and relatives you choose whenever you wish. Why on earth would you want to ruin that ideal lifestyle by entering into a partnership with someone else, especially a commitment like marriage? Why give up your freedom? Why would you want to do that? Have you lost your mind? Once you do that, you can no longer dictate your own schedule. You have a partner to think of as well. Why are we prepared to do this? To enter into a relationship to live with someone? Why would we give up all of our freedom and the power of directing our own lives merely in order to share it with someone else? And the answer, ladies and gentlemen, is simple. We never really wanted freedom anyway. That was never our deepest desire. Deep inside, we all hope that we are somehow unique, irreplaceable. Feeling special is an essential part of our survival instinct. Moreover, it's actually true. It's real. God has counted the hairs on your head. But the paradoxical thing is that while we feel on the inside that we're unique, it takes someone on the outside to confirm it. We need someone else to make us feel special. Don't believe the modern day psychobabble that it's enough in life to love and appreciate yourself. Nonsense. We all need someone to give us a pat on the back and tell us that we're wonderful. We are nothing without love and appreciation from someone else. Notice I don't say approval. You have to have inner convictions in life, and you shouldn't search for approval. But you do need appreciation and to be told by someone else that you are indeed loved. That time with you is what makes life worth living. Being the one and only. From the first date, when a man asks a woman to spend time with him, she feels distinguished by the fact that he could have asked anyone, but he chose her. When a woman agrees to the date, the man feels honored and gratified. She could have refused, but she chose to accept and go out with him. Paradoxically, in order to establish a relationship and thereby enhance our lives, we must first risk personal destruction. In other words, before bringing another person into our lives, we must be willing to risk rejection. When dating becomes a devoted and loving relationship, men and women can constantly remind one another of this. They have chosen to be together, and the importance of making that first choice is immense. It makes worthwhile any loss of personal freedom and the challenges and worries about moving into a more binding relationship. But if you make your date subordinate to all the other concerns in your life, if you deny them their right to be first place with you, then they have little incentive to give up their freedom in order to make you happy. Our rabbis explain that when Hashem spoke at Sinai to the Jewish people, the earth was utterly silent. And it says, when the Holy One, blessed be He, presented the Torah, not a bird chirped, not a fowl flew, not an axe lowed, not an angel ascended, not even an angel proclaimed holy. The sea did not roll, and no creature made a sound. All of the vast universe was silent and mute. The lesson here is never to interrupt your date. One of the mistakes that some people make is that they don't stop talking on a date. They love the sound of their own voice. Women especially complain that men love talking about themselves and rarely listen. Man or woman, yours was not the voice that thundered forth from Sinai. So start falling in love with the sound of your date's voice and let them be heard. Story. Carol told the dating coach about her date with a computer programmer. Simon, who talked for 5 straight hours about why the Unix operating system is better than Windows. She was finally forced to take drastic action. She held a knife to his chest and threatened to cut out his heart if he said one more word. So take a breather. Here's another one. Gary lost the opportunity for romance with a beautiful woman. Gary is a brilliant scholar, and he asked the woman out to have dinner with him. She accepted. Because he has a PhD, he assumed he was much more clever and wittier than she was. So he talked down to her. After 1 hour at the dinner table, she asked him, please, take me home. And he says to her, what's wrong? And she answered, I never in my life have met a man so full of himself as you. I'm going to leave now, so I won't have to come between you and yourself. The date was over. Gary blew it. No matter how smart, no matter how rich, no matter how beautiful you are, your date must be given first place primacy. We've personally endeavored night and day to work on this matter, which is you have to work on yourself not to overspeak, to be sure what you have to say is so much more interesting and important, but even so, you have to show respect to lesser mortals. The most eloquent way to show respect for another person is to let them speak and listen to them. A great listener is a great human being. Bite your tongue, chew on your lip. Take a laxative. Do whatever is necessary to suppress the urge to talk and talk and talk about yourself, and let your date do more of the talking. Ancient Egypt was a land obsessed with death, a place where the manner in which a man was buried was more significant than how he lived. You're familiar with the great pyramids, the tombs of the pharaohs, glorified shrines to death. We want to use the metaphor of coming out of Egypt as coming out of old or dead relationships. Egypt means X. When two people have fallen in love and become one, there can be no separation without amputation. A breakup is a form of bereavement. It represents death in a sense, the death of love, and the pain it causes cannot be underestimated. We've all been through it, heartbreaking relationships, but you have to learn how to move on. A man or a woman who suffers a breakup will often stop eating and sleeping. Some become suicidal, God forbid. But even when they do recover, they often emerge from the experience burdened and scarred with the hurt and bitterness of the past, not elated by the hope and promise of the future. Example, Michelle was distraught. She had recently broken up with a man who, after 3 years with her, had refused to even discuss marriage. We knew she felt she had made the right decision and was surprised to see her in this state. "What's wrong with me?" she demanded. "Since the breakup, I've gone out with lots of wonderful men. Yet although I try to be pleasant and happy, I can't help acting aloof and cynical with these new men. Already 2 men I really liked have not invited me out again." You must understand what a huge trauma you've been through. A breakup demands a mourning period. Like any other form of bereavement, you'll just have to be a little less sociable for a while, which means don't go hustling into another relationship until you feel you're over the old one. Some people date and break up so frequently that they become hardened. They don't realize the harmful effect having their hearts broken has on them. They pick up the pieces and glue them back together so they can go straight into the next relationship. But the cracks are still there, and they're all too obvious. Take the time to heal out properly. Don't rush back into another relationship. In this condition, it's hardly fair of you to expect the dating to go as well as it should. If you have just ended a relationship and you're still recovering from a past love, you need some healing from the effects of coming out of Egypt. Even the Israelites needed 40 years in the desert so they can heal after all the trauma of 210 years of slavery. After the breakup of an ex, everybody needs a break. You have to achieve proper closure on your past life. And the best way to do that is to talk endlessly. The right person to talk to is not your new romance. You need to have a patient Moses to talk to, someone to bring you out. You need someone who brings out a redemptive and soothing quality into your life. Perhaps a counselor, a dating coach, someone, a religious advisor, or simply a good friend, someone who can help you get over the pain, lead you out of Egypt. So be prepared to spend time in the wilderness for a while before running into your next relationship. Don't rush into the next affair. The Jewish religion mandates a mourning period after a bereavement of social withdrawal, affording the individual the opportunity to recover before they have to smile at strangers and laugh at acquaintances' jokes. Grant yourself a healing period after breaking up with someone. Coming out of Egypt can also be a metaphor for separating yourself from your old ways of life, from your old habits. If you're going to date seriously, you may have to drop some things that would make your date feel that you don't have the time to spare for serious commitment. If you're too steeped in your own concerns, enmeshed in or enamored of your past, to ever want to share your life with someone else, this will soon show. Don't go into a new relationship talking about your past, talking about your relationships. You've got to first come out of your own Egypt. The joy of dating, very important. And I tell this to many singles when I prepare them for dates. Hashem is telling us in the first commandment, not only that He has taken us out of Egypt, but also that He'll help us out of our sorrows and elevate us to a place of joy. One of the most effective ways to win over someone's heart is to raise him or her above their everyday troubles. I always tell my clients as I'm about to prepare them to go on a date, transport your date into a different place. Take them to an oasis where they can forget about their problems, their troubles, their concerns, the pressures of everyday life. Life is painful and lonely for us, many of us. Our problems can seem huge and unbearable, even if they seem laughably small to someone else. Be empathetic to your date, no matter how trivial you think their complaint is. Whatever they say, make them feel good. Always focus on entertaining your date. If you give someone a thoroughly enjoyable time on a date, make them laugh. Help them to forget their worries for a while. So they go home and say, you know what, that person, that man that I went out with, that girl that I went out with, they just lifted me to a new place. They helped me forget all my problems, my concerns, my agitations. They'll always want to be part of your company. People want to be around people who make them feel good, who help them forget about their suffering and their troubles. They will associate you with joy. and come to think of the rest of their life without you as empty and meaningless. They're going to want you around because they're going to associate you with happiness and simcha. Conversely, if you only use your dates as opportunities to unload your troubles, don't be surprised if the next time you don't get a second date. Another thing that's very important that I learned years ago from studying Dale Carnegie, when we took the course, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and it's a very important technique. Remember your date's name and use it often. In the first commandment, God introduces himself by name. He says, I am the Lord your God. And he calls his people by name, Israel. Someone who uses your name makes you feel warm. As Dale Carnegie would say, the sweetest, most impressive sound in the world is your first name. Calling someone by name is something very important to them. It has a deep feeling for them. So rather than saying, I was thinking that maybe we should go to the sea, try saying, Daniel, how about if we do this? Sarah, what do you think if we do that? That's very important. Try to use your date's name often. So it's important because that's going to help you a lot. You'll connect to that person much more deeply. Why will a man end the relationship? Why will a woman dump one guy and date another? Whatever the reason you give for being dissatisfied with a relationship, the basic truth is that you're bored. You come out of a relationship because you feel bored. It's not stimulating anymore. The earth does not move for you anymore. You forget why you were ever interested in the person in the first place. Sure, there are many other reasons that relationships break up, like too much arguing, but on the whole, the most frequent reason is that you slowly drift apart from another person because you don't find that partner as compelling as you once used to find them. Why are people so fascinated by the stars and outer space? You know why? Because space is infinite, an inexhaustible source of wonder and mystery. We just don't know what is out there, so we never get bored by it. Unfortunately, most other subjects, including our fellow man, don't seem nearly as fascinating because they're finite and limited. This is the dating paradox we all find ourselves in. On one hand, you continue dating in order to learn more about the other person. However, the risk is that the more you're exposed to each other, the more likely you are to get bored. I just had this tonight. I had a dating couple here. We're dating for a while, and I see that it's starting to get stale. And I'm wondering, what's going on here? And I explained to them that you've been already dating close to 3.5 to 4 months. And the longer you go out, the longer you risk the possibility that you're going to get bored of each other. It's just like cooking cholent. You can take it to a maximum point where it's going to taste great, but after a while, if it remains on the fire, it spoils, dries out, and becomes unedible. If you're bored, the problem is usually with you, not your date. If you're interested only in what your date represents, their looks, their wealth, their glamour, or because they're a great dancer, you're going to grow bored. We guarantee it. You need to look into the soul of the person. You need to look into the soul of your date. This is why you must search for a soulmate, not a partner. All of us are comprised of two essential ingredients. We're all composed of a body and a soul. The body can be seen, it can be touched, it can be tasted, scented, and heard, but the soul can only be experienced. Your objective should be not to see how much you have in common, whether you share the same taste in music or agree about political issues, because if you agree about everything, you're sure to get bored. Instead, you should open your hearts to people and show them your spiritual dimension. I always try to tell the story of Larry and Linda. Larry and Linda had an almost enviable relationship. They agreed on politics, they agreed on the earth, they agreed on music, they agreed on food, and about everything. And guess what? Larry and Linda are now divorced. Why? Because they never saw marriage as a spiritual pathway, a pathway of self-improvement. And as a result, self-centeredness took over. And then their marriage just deteriorated and crumbled. We have to remember there's got to be a spiritual path in your life, because the spiritual path is what makes and grants that marriage a fantastic foundation. Look for your partner's soul. Let me tell you an interesting story of the great Rabbi, Rabbi Ber. He lay dying. He told his grandson on his deathbed, now that I'm about to meet my maker, I'm no longer a body. My whole being right now is merely the divine spark, which is my last moments. His grandson touched his hand. Look, grandfather, you're wrong. You have a body. I've just touched your hand. And the old sage responded, because you touch with a hand, you feel a hand. Had you felt me with your soul, you would see that I'm nothing but a soul. The importance of this point cannot be underestimated. So peel away those layers. You must expose your soul on a date if you really want to connect on a deep level, because that's what it's all about. Oftentimes people call me and tell me, I've been going out for a while, but I'm not feeling it. And the reason they're not feeling it is because they're not exposing their vulnerability. They're not letting the person into their real life. They're not telling the person what they believe in, what they want to live for, what they're willing to die for. Critical, you got to get those comments out there. You've got to get your opinions out there. What are your values? What are your core beliefs? Share them with your date. Don't be afraid to discuss your fears or your anxieties. 3 practical suggestions that I'd like to offer right now. Discuss important issues on your date rather than the latest movie you saw. Speak about what your values are. Tell important stories about your formative experiences. That's important. 2, do good deeds with your date. Maybe do a chesed project. Maybe pack food for Tomchei Shabbos to give to poor people. Go and visit a forgotten grandmother together. Remind her that you care for her. Volunteer jointly for a charity affair, for example. Do things that are deep in terms of their spiritual capabilities. Number 3, show the person that you're dating that you have some core beliefs by mixing some religious traditions into the date. Don't try to change people. God has primacy over all creation. He's the master and judge of the earth. But you're not. Since you're not God, don't seek to be a judge. Nothing is more off-putting than someone who goes into a relationship in order to try to change the partner. Nobody loves a critic. Don't try to change the person you're dating. The only person we know that you can change is yourself. The reason you should date is in order to find someone to love with all their faults, not to change them. That's why we hug the people we love. We're showing them that we embrace all of them. Knowing that there is a God, man can never aspire to be anything but number 2. Therefore, let's always remember to be humble. Be forgiving of your date's shortcomings. I know a guy who's still alone at the age of 47. He finds fault with every woman he dates. The last complaint I heard from him was that he gave up dating a girl because her teeth were not straight. The Bible says that when Adam was first created, he was lonely. But why was he lonely? When he was surrounded by millions of angels who were doing his bidding. The ancient rabbis explain that he was lonely because angels are perfect. They could talk with Adam and share a joke with Adam, but they never needed him. No angel ever came over to Adam and asked him for a loan. Nor did any angel say to Adam, I'm cold, I need a hug. It wasn't until God created Eve, who like Adam was imperfect, that Adam's loneliness was finally cured. Now there was someone who needed human warmth just like him. Now there was someone who occasionally became frustrated like him. Now there was someone who was just like him, who needed encouragement and guidance just like him. And in his capacity to give, Adam found meaning and purpose in his life, because that's why we're here, to be givers. Be thankful, therefore, that the person you're dating is not perfect, leaving plenty of room for you to make an invaluable contribution to their life. So let's sum it up. What can we learn from today's lesson? Number 1, the summary of making your date first choice and first place. Number 1, make your date know that they come first. 2, show your true self to them. 3, spend quantity time together. 4, make them your one and only. 5, don't interrupt them when they're speaking. 6, coming out of Egypt means after a breakup, take a break from dating after a breakup so you can be your best self to the next person that you date with. 7, bring joy to your date. Transport them to a place where they can forget about their problems and their troubles. 8, remember their name obviously and use it as often as you can. And number 9, don't try to change people. And number 10, don't bring your mother on a date with you. Just a joke. Anyway, it was an honor and a pleasure to give over this presentation tonight. I often, over the years, I've told so many students that one of the biggest problems we see, especially in marriage, is that we become so habituated, we forget about our wives, we forget about our husbands, and they start to rank lower and lower and lower in the priorities of our life. The most important thing to remember is to start exercising now while you're dating, is to make your date first choice, and if you, God willing, get married to them, remember to always work on the marriage so they remain at the top of your ladder. And if you have any requests for help in dating, would like my help in getting matched up, would like my help in evaluating a relationship, please feel free to reach out to me from anywhere in the world at 305-206-1916. Have a wonderful week.